The myths of humanity. In a far-off galaxy, among the stars, there were whispers, legends told by countless civilizations of a species known as humans. To most, these humans were nothing more than a myth, an ancient story passed down through generations, seen as no more than a fairy tale. The galaxy's most advanced beings had long since moved beyond the primitive stages of war and conquest. They had evolved past the need for fighting, living in peace and harmony. And then, there were the humans. To the greater part of the universe, humans were nothing more than weak, insignificant creatures who lived on a small, insignificant planet. Their history was filled with violence, struggle, and war. But they had not yet joined the greater galactic community. They had not discovered the secret of faster-than-light travel, nor had they mastered the art of space warfare. They were seen as nothing more than a fleeting spark in the vast expanse of space. And so, their myth grew. The older races of the galaxy, the mighty species with long histories and powerful fleets, laughed at the idea of humans being anything more than an ancient footnote. The stories told of their wars. Humans fought each other with brutal weapons and barely held on to their planet. The tales painted them as stubborn, prideful, and prone to violence. Yet these beings remained largely unaware of the truth that the universe had failed to notice. The oldest myths said that humans would one day break out from their homeworld and strike out across the stars. Some believed this day would never come, while others feared it, but none expected what would happen when it did. Far beyond the outer reaches of the galaxy, human civilization was slowly expanding. Small ships ventured out into the unknown, pushing their limits. A few minor encounters with other species had occurred, but nothing noteworthy. The stories were still seen as just that, stories. In the deepest corners of space, there was one being, an ancient entity who had seen the rise and fall of many empires, who began to notice something strange. Reports were coming in from distant star systems about human ships. Strange, unexpected reports. At first, the readings were dismissed. The ships were small, primitive, and insignificant, so the older, wiser beings thought. But soon, the reports began to stack up. Human ships were appearing at the edges of known space. They were not engaging in peace talks or friendly exchanges. They were destroying things. Their ships, although crude compared to the mighty fleets of the galaxy's most advanced races, were efficient. There were whispers again, but this time they were laced with fear. A few lost battles here and there. Nothing to worry about, or so they thought. But the humans kept coming. Slowly at first, but then faster, bolder. They were taking down outposts, vanquishing entire fleets, and wiping out colonies in a way that seemed impossible. How could this be? The legends were wrong. They had to be. Humans were not supposed to be able to do this. Their myth didn't align with reality. Yet here they were, doing the impossible. At the heart of it all was a realization that no one expected. The humans were more than they appeared. The primitive creatures from Earth, who had only recently mastered space travel, were now devastating fleets of ships far more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. The greatest minds of the galaxy were stunned. What was happening? How was it possible? As reports kept flooding in, the galactic leaders began to gather. They met in secret, far away from the eyes of their people. "This is no accident," one leader said, his voice shaking. "They are more than myths. They are a threat." Some dismissed it, still clinging to the old belief that humans were too weak to stand against the might of the galaxy's greatest species. But as more and more attacks came, the fear started to spread. What if the humans were not just a primitive race? What if they were something more? Could it be that the myths were true? Another leader asked, his voice filled with dread. Could they really be the ones who would rise and conquer us all? The first signs were subtle at first. A small, unexpected fleet here, a victory there. But these small, insignificant events added up. The humans were winning. Slowly but surely, they were winning. The galaxy began to wake up to the reality that their old myths about humanity were not just stories. They were warnings. Humans were not weak. They were a force to be reckoned with. But no one knew the truth yet. Not fully. No one had seen what humans were truly capable of, and they didn't yet understand the relentless, fiery spirit of humanity that could not be extinguished, no matter the odds. This was only the beginning. And so, the myths about humanity began to unravel, piece by piece. They had always been told in hushed tones, passed down like ancient stories meant to entertain. But now, as the fleet of human ships grew, and their victories mounted, the galaxy began to realize something horrifying. The humans weren't a myth. They were very real. And the legends of their rise were just beginning to unfold. The first encounter. It wasn't long before the first major clash between the humans and the galactic powers took place. The ancient legends had hinted at this moment for centuries, but no one had truly believed it would come to pass. The humans, those once thought to be insignificant, now stood at the edge of galactic warfare. The first encounter came unexpectedly, with a human ship encountering an advanced fleet from the Aukar Empire, a massive and well-respected civilization in the galaxy. The Aukar Empire had always been known for its invincible fleet and technological prowess. Their ships were equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, and they had conquered countless planets. They never thought twice about confronting any species weaker than themselves, and the humans were considered no exception. But on that fateful day, things went horribly wrong. The Aukar fleet was dispatched to investigate the sudden appearance of a small human ship that had entered their territory without authorization. At first, the Aukar commanders dismissed it as nothing more than an accidental incursion. Their orders were clear: stop the human ship, send a warning, and move on. It would be a simple task, one that would end with a minor reprimand for the humans. But the humans had other plans. As the Aukar fleet closed in on the human ship, the unexpected happened. The human vessel, though appearing outdated compared to the Aukar ships, suddenly engaged in a fierce, well-coordinated attack. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a desperate act, a fight they couldn't possibly win. But the Aukar fleet quickly realized they had underestimated their opponents. The human ship's weapons were primitive, but they were cunning. The humans had learned to maximize their technology in ways no one could have predicted. Their ships weaved through the Aukar fleet with incredible precision, dodging laser fire and launching devastating counterattacks. It wasn't just the technology that shocked the Aukar Empire. It was the strategy, the willpower, the unexpected brilliance of the humans that caught them off guard. One by one, Aukar ships fell to the human assault. The humans displayed a level of coordination that the Aukar Empire had not anticipated. They didn't fight like the other species. They didn't rely solely on sheer firepower or overwhelming numbers. Instead, they fought with determination, creativity, and resourcefulness. It was a fight that no one had expected, but it was one that the humans were winning. The Aukar fleet, in disbelief, attempted to regroup and counterattack. But the human ship's captain, a fearless and brilliant strategist, anticipated their every move. The humans had learned from their past wars how to fight against overwhelming odds, how to adapt and surprise their enemies. This was their advantage. By the time the battle was over, the Aukar Empire was left reeling. A fleet that had been considered unbeatable was decimated by a single small human vessel. The loss was catastrophic, not just in terms of ships, but in terms of pride. The Aukar Empire had believed they were untouchable, and now they were forced to admit that the humans were something entirely different. They were not the weak species that their legends had made them out to be. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy was thrown into chaos. News of the human victory spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the galaxy. The once dismissed myths about humanity began to take on new meaning. The reality of what had just happened was too overwhelming to ignore. The humans had shown they were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. They were not just a threat. They were a force to be reckoned with. Other galactic powers, once confident in their superiority, now began to take notice. The idea that humanity was a primitive, insignificant species was shattered in an instant. The first encounter was over, but the implications of that battle would echo through the galaxy for years to come. The humans had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the Aukar Empire retreated and regrouped, they realized that the legend of humanity was not just a tale, it was a warning. They had underestimated the humans, and now they would have to face the consequences. But as the humans celebrated their victory, they knew this was just the beginning. The universe had no idea what was coming next, and humanity was ready to prove that the legends weren't just stories. They were the truth. The secret weapon. The first battle was just a taste of what was to come. The galaxy watched in shock as the humans, once thought to be weak and unworthy, crushed the Aukar fleet with ease. But as their enemies began to retreat, whispers spread that the humans were hiding something more, something that had given them the edge in the battle. There was more to their success than just their resourcefulness and determination. The galaxy began to wonder, what was the true secret behind humanity's sudden rise? The truth, hidden for centuries, began to surface. The human ship that had destroyed the Aukar fleet was not as primitive as it seemed. Beneath its outdated exterior, it was equipped with technology that no one had ever seen before. It was rumored that the humans had stumbled upon something ancient, something that had been buried deep in their history, something so powerful that it could change the course of the galaxy forever. This technology, known only to the highest-ranking officials within the human fleet, was the key to their astonishing victory. The secret weapon was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was not a massive planet-destroying laser or an unbeatable shield. Instead, it was a small but incredibly advanced piece of technology that harnessed the power of quantum mechanics. The humans had discovered a way to manipulate space itself, creating pockets of reality where their ships could move faster, dodge incoming fire, and launch attacks with precision that no other species could match. This technology was the humans' greatest advantage. It allowed them to manipulate the battlefield in ways that defied logic. While other civilizations relied on brute force and firepower, the humans had learned to control the very fabric of space to gain the upper hand. This discovery was the result of centuries of trial and error, of wars fought and lost, of desperation in the face of impossible odds. It was humanity's greatest triumph, the culmination of all their struggles and ingenuity. But it was also something that the galaxy was not prepared for. The advanced species of the universe, who had long dominated the stars, were not ready for a species that could bend reality itself to their will. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were the ones holding the key to victory. The first time the galaxy truly realized the scope of the humans' new technology was when a human fleet engaged a massive armada from the Rion Dominion, one of the largest and most powerful forces in the galaxy. The Rion Dominion had built their empire through sheer military might and had long considered themselves invincible. Their ships were armed with the most advanced weaponry, and their commanders were experts in every aspect of warfare. But when they met the humans in battle, they found themselves facing something they could not comprehend. The human ships, equipped with the quantum manipulation technology, moved in and out of battle zones with such speed and unpredictability that the Rion ships couldn't lock on to their targets. The humans seemed to vanish and reappear in different locations, launching devastating attacks from every angle. The Rion fleet fired everything they had, but the human ships seemed to slip through their attacks like ghosts, only to strike back harder than ever. It was the first true test of the human weapon, and it was a spectacle that left the galaxy in awe. The Rion Dominion, despite their vast numbers and superior firepower, was utterly helpless. The humans were not just winning, they were completely dominating. The Rion commanders, in desperation, tried every strategy in the book, but none could overcome the humans' new advantage. And just like that, another powerful fleet had fallen to humanity. The galaxy's greatest empires began to realize that their old strategies were no longer enough. The humans had something no one else had, and they were using it with terrifying effectiveness. It wasn't just their technology that made them dangerous. It was their ability to innovate, adapt, and use their advantages in ways no one else could predict. As word of this new technology spread, the galaxy was thrown into a state of confusion and fear. No one knew where the humans had gotten this technology from, or how they had managed to harness its power. Some speculated that they had found it hidden in the ruins of an ancient, long-dead civilization. Others believed that the humans had discovered the technology on their own, through their own ingenuity and relentless pursuit of progress. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: the humans were no longer just a myth. They were a force that could not be ignored. And with their secret weapon, they were poised to challenge the very balance of power in the galaxy. The galaxy's greatest civilizations, once confident in their invincibility, were now faced with a terrifying new reality. They could no longer afford to underestimate the humans. What had once been a myth was now an undeniable truth, and the humans were ready to prove that they were a power to be reckoned with. The age of the humans had begun, and no one knew what the future would hold. The counterattack. As the human fleet continued to rise in power, the galaxy's greatest civilizations could no longer ignore the growing threat. The Akar Empire, still reeling from its humiliating defeat, was the first to take action. But they were not alone. The Rion Dominion, the Aldrax Federation, and several other empires began to form an uneasy alliance, fearing that if they didn't act now, humanity would overthrow them all. They decided to launch a massive counterattack, a combined force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had proved themselves capable of defeating entire fleets with their advanced technology, and the galaxy's leaders were determined to put an end to the human uprising before it was too late. The plan was simple: send a fleet large enough to overwhelm the humans. The Allied forces would strike at the heart of humanity's territory, cutting off their supply lines, destroying their ships, and forcing them to surrender. They had the numbers, the firepower, and the strategic advantages to end this quickly. The human forces, though impressive, were still relatively small in comparison to the united might of the galaxy's empires. But what they didn't anticipate was the humans' ability to adapt and fight back with a resilience they had never seen before. The counterattack began with a series of strikes against human colonies and outposts along their borders. The Allied fleet moved quickly, aiming to catch the humans off guard. But humanity was prepared. They had been anticipating this moment, watching and learning from every conflict, every battle. The humans knew that the only way to survive in this galaxy was to outsmart their enemies, and that's exactly what they did. When the Allied fleet arrived at the human colony world of Valoria, they were met with a shocking surprise. The planet appeared to be completely undefended. No fleet in sight, no defenses. It seemed like an easy target. But as the Allied forces moved into attack position, something strange happened. A sudden electromagnetic pulse rocked the enemy ships, disabling their weapons and shields for a brief moment. It was a tactic the humans had developed using their understanding of quantum mechanics. The EMP scrambled the advanced technology of the enemy fleet, giving the humans just enough time to launch their own devastating counterattack. Human ships, seemingly out of nowhere, began to emerge from hidden positions, their weapons charged and ready. The counterattack was swift and brutal. Human ships darted through the enemy lines, attacking with precision and speed that left the Allied fleet struggling to react. The humans' use of quantum manipulation made them nearly impossible to track, their ships appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. The Allied forces, despite their overwhelming numbers, found themselves unable to pin down their opponents. The battle on Valoria was just the beginning. As the Allied fleet tried to regroup, the humans launched a series of surprise attacks on other key locations, striking at the heart of the enemy's strategic positions. The once proud fleets of the Akar Empire, Rion Dominion, and the Aldrax Federation were now on the defensive. They had underestimated the human will to survive and the brilliance of their tactics. What was supposed to be a quick, decisive victory was turning into a nightmare. In the midst of the chaos, the human fleet's commander, Admiral Kalen, stood at the helm of their flagship, watching as his fleet decimated the enemy forces. He knew that the counterattack would be the most critical moment in their struggle for survival. If they could hold their ground, if they could defeat the united forces of the galaxy, humanity would prove that they were more than just a myth. They were a force that could not be ignored. But the galaxy's leaders were not ready to give up. The counteroffensive continued, with the Allied fleet regrouping for one final assault on the human homeworld, Earth itself. They believed that if they could destroy Earth, they would destroy humanity's will to fight, and the threat would be over. But the humans had one more trick up their sleeve. As the Allied forces neared Earth, they were met with a surprise. A fleet of human ships unlike anything they had seen before. These ships were massive, heavily armored, and equipped with weapons capable of tearing through even the strongest of shields. They were humanity's final line of defense. The humans had built their forces in secret, preparing for the day when the galaxy would come to destroy them. And now, that day had arrived. The battle for Earth began, and it was like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human fleet, with their new ships and advanced technology, fought with everything they had. The humans were outnumbered, but they were determined to protect their home. The battle was long, brutal, and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But slowly, over the course of days and nights, the human fleet began to gain the upper hand. The Allied forces, once so sure of their victory, began to falter. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had underestimated the power of human ingenuity, creativity, and spirit. And now, as the battle reached its peak, the Allied fleet realized the truth. The humans were not the weak, primitive species they had thought them to be. They were survivors. They were fighters. And they were winning. The counterattack had failed. Humanity had proven that no force, no matter how powerful, could crush their spirit. The galaxy would have to come to terms with the reality that humanity was here to stay. A glimpse of humanity's past. As the human fleet stood victorious, the galaxy's leaders were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humanity. They had expected to crush them quickly, to show them their place in the universe. Instead, they had learned a harsh lesson. Humanity could not be underestimated. The counterattack had failed, and the humans had proven that they were not only a force to be reckoned with, but an unstoppable one. But what was it that made humanity so relentless? What drove these seemingly primitive creatures to stand against the might of the galaxy's greatest empires? To understand the true power of humanity, the galaxy needed to look deeper into their past. Far from the battlefields and the endless wars that had shaped the present, there was a history, one that spoke of survival, of endless struggle, and an unyielding desire to overcome. It was a history that no other species in the galaxy could truly understand. The human's past was a tapestry of hardship, where survival was never guaranteed and victory was never certain. The ancient records of Earth told stories of countless wars. Empires rose and fell, nations clashed, and the Earth itself was ravaged by conflicts that nearly wiped out its inhabitants. But through it all, humanity survived. They fought, they learned, and they evolved. They discovered new technologies, new ways to think, new ways to fight. But most importantly, they never stopped pushing forward. Every defeat was a lesson. Every loss was a reason to grow stronger. In the darkest days of their past, when it seemed that humanity would be wiped out by war or famine or disease, they found a way to survive. They banded together, not as individual nations or tribes, but as a species united by a single, unbreakable goal: to survive. And in doing so, they found strength they never knew they had. As the galaxy's leaders began to learn more about humanity's history, they realized that this was what made humans different. It wasn't just their technology or their ingenuity. It was their spirit. The humans had faced the darkest moments in their history, and each time they had come back stronger. They didn't just fight to survive. They fought to thrive. And that relentless drive had carried them through to this moment. The galaxy's leaders, once so confident in their superiority, began to question their own societies. How many of their civilizations have been built on the backs of war and conquest? How many had risen to power by crushing weaker species and claiming their territory as their own? They had never faced a species like humanity, one that would not bend, one that would not break, no matter the odds. The humans' past was not just a story of survival, it was a story of transformation. From the ashes of war, they had risen and rebuilt, each generation learning from the mistakes of the last. They were a species that had been forged in the fires of conflict, but rather than being consumed by it, they had emerged stronger. It was this unyielding spirit, this determination to push forward no matter the cost, that made humanity so dangerous. For the first time, the galaxy's leaders understood what they were up against. The humans were not just fighting for power or control. They were fighting for something much deeper, something that no empire could ever take from them. The humans were fighting for their place in the universe, a place that they had earned through centuries of struggle and hardship. As the galaxy's empires looked inward, they saw the truth. They had underestimated the humans. They had laughed at their myths, dismissed their legends, and believed that they were nothing more than a footnote in the story of the galaxy. But now, they saw humanity for what it truly was, a species that had survived against all odds and was now prepared to claim its rightful place among the stars. And in the midst of it all, the humans stood tall. They had not only survived, they had conquered. Their past had shaped them into something that the galaxy could no longer ignore. They were no longer the underdogs. They were no longer the weak, insignificant species that everyone had thought them to be. They were the future. The galaxy now had a choice. They could continue to fight against humanity, to try and crush them under the weight of their superior fleets and technology. Or they could learn to respect humanity, to recognize the strength that came from their past and the spirit that burned within them. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had risen, and their place in the stars was now secure. A galactic reckoning. The galaxy's power structure was shifting, and it was clear to all that the humans were no longer just an unknown threat. They were the future. After countless defeats, the galaxy's greatest empires were beginning to understand that they had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to shape the future, to carve out a place for themselves among the stars. And the galaxy was forced to take notice. After the humans' decisive victories over the Okkar Empire, the Rion Dominion, and the Aldrax Federation, the other galactic powers began to form an uneasy coalition. They realized that humanity, with their incredible resilience and advanced technologies, had the potential to upset the entire balance of power. They had to act quickly before the humans became too powerful to stop. The galaxy's great leaders met in secret, fearing the implications of humanity's rise. They had fought wars for centuries, but nothing had prepared them for a species like humans. What began as a series of isolated incidents, human victories in small skirmishes, had now become a full-scale conflict, with humanity pushing farther and faster than any of the galaxy's empires could predict. The humans, however, had a different perspective. Their leaders knew they were now in a unique position, one that had the potential to change everything. But they had no desire to dominate the galaxy for its own sake. They were fighting not to conquer, but to protect their future, to secure their place among the stars, where they could thrive, not just survive. But that future could only be achieved through the downfall of those who sought to crush them. Admiral Kalen, humanity's greatest military strategist, stood before his fleet, looking out into the vast emptiness of space. The last several years had been filled with bloodshed, struggle, and unthinkable challenges. But through it all, humanity had endured. They had proven that no matter how mighty the opposition, no matter how daunting the task, they could not be broken. Now, Admiral Kalen said, his voice calm but determined, "We show the galaxy that we are not the enemy. We are not invaders. We are humanity, and we will no longer be treated as an afterthought. Our future, it is ours to decide." The Admiral's words rang out across the fleet, and his crew, seasoned veterans of countless battles, felt a surge of pride. The time for defense was over. Humanity had fought long enough to survive. Now, they were going to make their mark on the galaxy. As the allied fleet of the galaxy's most powerful empires mobilized for a final assault on Earth, humanity's forces began to move in a new direction. They had learned from their battles. Each victory had given them more knowledge, more understanding of the galaxy's systems, and more insight into the weaknesses of their enemies. They were no longer the underdogs. They were the reckoning. And as their fleet moved into the heart of enemy territory, they began to strike at the very foundation of galactic power. But even as the humans prepared for their final assault, the galaxy's empires made a terrible realization. Humanity was not only willing to fight back, they were willing to do whatever it took to ensure their survival. The galactic powers had always relied on their technological superiority, their immense fleets, and their centuries-old strategies. But humanity had one thing they did not: a fierce, unyielding drive to defend their future at any cost. The humans launched surprise strikes at key military installations across the galaxy. They attacked not just with their fleets, but with everything they had: cyber warfare, sabotage, and covert operations. The galaxy's empires found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to protect their vital systems from the humans' relentless assault. What had started as a fight for survival was now becoming a war to determine the fate of the galaxy. And as humanity's forces pushed deeper into enemy territory, the leaders of the galaxy's most powerful empires were forced to make a difficult choice. They had underestimated humanity for far too long. Now they had two options: continue their struggle to crush humanity, risking total annihilation, or negotiate with the very species they had once dismissed as nothing more than a myth. For the first time in the galaxy's history, the greatest powers faced an undeniable truth. Humanity was not to be feared because of its technology alone. It was their unbreakable will, their resilience in the face of impossible odds, that made them a force unlike any other. As the galactic powers convened in a tense and urgent summit, they realized that the humans had already won. Not because of their superior technology or their mighty fleets, but because of their spirit, the unrelenting fire that had driven them to this point. The galaxy now had to decide if they would accept humanity as an equal or face the consequences of underestimating them one final time. The future of the galaxy was now in humanity's hands, and the empires knew that whatever path humanity chose, it would reshape the universe forever. The question was no longer whether the humans would survive. They had already proven they could. The question was how the galaxy would adapt to this new reality. Would it accept humanity's place in the stars, or would it face total destruction? Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. The future of humanity. The galaxy stood at a precipice, facing a future that no one had predicted. After decades of struggle, of battling against overwhelming odds, humanity had risen to claim its place among the stars. The empires of the galaxy, once so confident in their dominance, now found themselves staring at a new, undeniable force: humanity. The final battle for Earth's survival had ended with humanity emerging victorious, and now the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The once dismissed species had transformed into the galaxy's most powerful and unpredictable player. No longer were they simply a species fighting for survival. They were a species that had proven their strength, their intelligence, and their unyielding spirit. The leaders of the galaxy's greatest civilizations gathered once again, but this time there was no arrogant confidence in their discussions. There was no longer any talk of destruction or domination. Instead, the question on everyone's mind was, what would humanity do now? Admiral Kalen stood before a council of galactic leaders, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. The galaxy's empires had come to him, hoping for an answer, hoping for a path forward that would allow them to coexist with the humans. They had come to understand something they had never seen before. The spirit of humanity was not something that could be destroyed. It was something that could be shared. if they were willing to accept it. "We are not conquerors," Kalen said, his voice calm but firm. "We never sought power for its own sake. We fought because we believed in a future where we could thrive. We want peace, not domination. But that peace can only come if we are allowed to be who we are, to build our future without fear." His words resonated with many in the room. Humanity was not just a species bent on conquest or revenge. They were a people who had been forged by conflict, but who now sought something greater: the chance to thrive, to explore, and to contribute to the greater good of the galaxy. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy could accept them as equals. But not everyone in the room was ready to accept humanity's place at the table. There were still those who saw humans as a threat, a force too unpredictable to trust. "What guarantee do we have," one leader asked, "that the humans won't rise against us again in the future, once they grow stronger?" Kalen met his gaze without flinching. "There is no guarantee," he said, "but what I can offer is this. The future of the galaxy can only be shaped if we all share in it. Humanity has been tested, and we have chosen to move forward in peace. If you are willing to trust us, we will stand with you. If not, we will protect ourselves and our future, by any means necessary." The room fell silent, the weight of Kalen's words settling over the council like a heavy cloud. The galaxy's great powers were faced with an undeniable truth. Humanity had earned its place, not by brute force alone, but by their unbreakable will and their vision for the future. Over time, as tensions eased and discussions continued, a new reality began to take shape. The humans, now seen as equals among the galaxy's great powers, began to rebuild the fragile peace that had once seemed impossible. The old empires, though hesitant, began to realize that humanity's unique strength, its ability to adapt, innovate, and rise from even the darkest of times, was something that could be harnessed for the betterment of all. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer just about survival. It was about growth, cooperation, and the shared pursuit of knowledge. The humans brought with them a new vision for the galaxy, one that was driven not by the need to conquer, but by the desire to explore and build a future together. They shared their knowledge, their technology, and their newfound understanding of the universe's deeper secrets with the other civilizations. And yet, even as peace settled into the galaxy, humanity was never one to rest on its laurels. The spark that had driven them to rise above their challenges was still burning brightly within them. As they explored new systems, discovered new planets, and formed alliances with other species, the humans knew that this was just the beginning. The future held endless possibilities. As the centuries passed, the legends of humanity continued to spread throughout the galaxy, not as myths of weakness or primitive beings, but as stories of resilience, of ingenuity, and of an unbreakable will to survive. The galaxy, now shaped by humanity's influence, had become a place where cooperation and peace were possible, but also a place where no one could forget the power of human spirit. Humanity had not only survived, they had reshaped the very fabric of the galaxy itself. And in the end, the galaxy had learned what the humans had known all along, that no matter how dark the days may seem, no matter how insurmountable the odds, there is always hope. And that hope, fueled by humanity's unwavering spirit, would carry them forward, shaping the future of the galaxy for generations to come.